Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 436. Today is Sunday, March 5th, 2023, and I'm glad you could join me today. I feel like I have like a very elven look going on. What would it be? And honest to goodness, I find this to be very, very hilarious because, so, I went to Stitches West yesterday. I have some thoughts, but what I found to be most hilarious, so I ended up wearing this to Stitches West, and what would it be? So this is like hand-spun, sheep to shawl sweater, dyed the whole thing, made a giant gradient, shenanigans. And what I was also wearing, I don't even have it with me. I was also wearing my woolly wormhead Azula hat. All of the compliments on the hat, all of them. The hat was a huge knitting success. People thought it was awesome. But then, as a spinner, as someone who slaved over, I don't know, slaved is the wrong word. As someone who spent hours upon hours of like dyeing wool and hand combing it and creating this whole color story, and then be like, your hat is awesome. So, what would it be? But like that's the thing, right? Like people like what they like. So it's just interesting that something that had like so much energy in it, you're like, that's fine. And so what would it be? And so I think that the other thing I made sure to bring it because I wasn't sure whether or not like Romy Hill would be hanging out at a Verb for Keeping Warm, to be like, hey, let me show you this thing, like taught, like whatever, because it was the case where like we were chatting online about it, and I like the last time that I went to Stitches West in 2020, like I made sure to go to a Verb for Keeping Warm and try on the sample and talk with her, because I was planning on making like one modification of the pattern. So there's that. Also, what would it be? Maybe it's the case where it's just like a little bit awkward for this guy because, what would it be? The purple color, so that red number 3, isn't color fast, and so you can't see the gradient as well because this purpley section here is now very much so more teal, and then sometimes, so then you can't even see as much that it is whatever, like a cloak of shadows. Whatever, such is life. We got good pictures once of it, and whatever, we made it work in the end. So, but I just had to like put the hat on the front. It was like I felt like I had worn my hand-spun masterpiece, and no one knew. It was like, this hat that I made with commercial yarn is awesome. And it is an awesome hat. Like, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of fun, but it wasn't what I was hoping to get compliments on. So I will make sure, for whatever fiber thing that I go to next time, that would be what would it be? I'll select a different hand-spun item of mastery, because that is the thing, right? Actually, is that the way that I did this, it probably is not as obvious that it is hand spun in the first place, and really fine hand spun. Oh, well, it's fine. But yeah. So I also have other thoughts about Stitch's Wedge, which I may as well get out of the way at the first. So this is a big one. So it was the case where I didn't go last year because I had whatever. I was with a newborn. I wasn't super duper confident about my ability to be the visiting team. So I decided not to go to Stitches West last year, but then heard reports back from my friends about it being a very different event than what we went to in 2020. And based on the conversations I had with the friends that I was hanging out with yesterday, even diminished from last year. So, like, I want to say the show is like a quarter to half the size that it was in 2020. Like 2020 was like whatever. That was like the last hurrah before the sadness of COVID descended upon us all. What would it be? The world changed very quickly after it, and we already knew that it was going to be changing locations to Sacramento, but then they ended up canceling the 2021 date, and so then they were back in 2022. Missed that one, and apparent or would it be? And then we have this year, and it was definitely pretty crowded and excited in the morning. But like we were like looking around at the afternoon and be like it's pretty Deadsville. So I do sincerely hope that the vendors did okay. I do sincerely hope that they decide to come back. But definitely the case where it would it be? It just was much more quiet and chill than times in the past. And so also I think the other thing going on too is what would it be? I think the other thing going on too is that it would be awesome what would it be to be able to take classes, and since it's the local event, like what would it be? I would probably prioritize making sure that I could take a Clemis and Clemis class again, and whatever else they have. It's definitely the case where the event has become more spinning friendly, or maybe Stitches has been more spinning friendly. Stitches West is more spinning friendly, but definitely the case where would it be? Definitely did not feel like it was the event to go to. You know what I mean? Like I would not tell my East Coast friends to fly out. Or would it be like it seemed, or would it be? It'd be the case where I would definitely say, and not that I've been to like a post-pandemic DFW Fiberfest, but it definitely felt like DFW Fiberfest was bigger and more lively than Stitches West in the post-pandemic times. So, what would it be? And I adore DFW Fiberfest as an event. It's probably been my favorite festival. And what would it be? I'm not sure how things have changed, because they were in April and now they're in September and stuff like that. But what would it be? There's also maybe some of that vibe going on as well at Stitches West, because it's not, or because they moved from last weekend in February to like first weekend in March. So you definitely feel the spring a lot more strong. Or what would it be? It's sometimes odd going to a spring fiber for that reason. It's like winter is over. So that's roughly speaking. I would say maybe some other observations from my group were like a whole bunch of neons were out. I don't know if this is because of the release of neons and neutrals or what have you, but it was the case where there were definitely either like shops that had like neon specialist dyers as like a featured part of their display, or indie dyers that were like neon specialists. But it definitely was very well represented. Not my main thing. I do have some of it actually from two of the three dyers who were obviously leaning hard into the neons. I already had stuff from them, so I didn't need it. Yeah. So the other thing was, as we were driving out, because we made it a day trip, did like a day trip with like my San Francisco group, and then ran into some people that I know locally, because pretty much like some of us are just showing up at or would it be if it's the big event, then I think we run into each other pretty frequently. So what, that's fine. So so it was the case where as we were like driving to there, like figuring out, and what would it be? It'd be the case where I think the other thing going on was 45-minute drive to Santa Clara versus hour and a half drive to Sacramento. So not terrible, like easily day trip. I had something in my mind that was 3 hours away, but I think that's Tahoe. So as we were driving there, it was like the person that I was with was like, I brought a bunch of yarn with me that I already own to remind me that I don't really need to buy yarn. And then my thing was like, I don't have a specific game plan. And then after like talking for a little bit, realized that there was something that I wanted to get. And it was something that I regretted not getting when I went to Stitches West last time. So that is what I ended up doing, and then I ended up doing only like one sort of spur of the moment purchase. Or I guess we're just doing stash positions at the front because we're talking Stitches West. It was also slightly hilarious because the Bambino did get into the bag this morning, but I think everything is accounted for. So this was my impulsive purchase. So I ended up getting the show colorway from Neighborhood Fiber Company. I figured I had knit up my Neighborhood Fiber Company stash. Therefore, it was time to get a little bit more. So I ended up getting 2 skeins of their alpaca fluff. It's called Surrey Loft, 65% Surrey, 20% merino, 15% silk. They are, what would it be? So I'm like a little bit under, so I'm at like 380 yards of this. So what would it be? A little bit heavier, but very, very soft and fluffy. And what got me about the colorway was that it was navy with like pops of bright colors. So we have teal, sort of like a, what would it be? Sort of goldy, somewhere sort of like that pastel orange, some bright pops of red. And then maybe like a little bit of purple where stuff collides. So, does it have a specific plan? No. Did I end up getting enough in order to make something of reasonable size? Probably. Maybe would I have needed another one? Not sure. But it was the show colorway, so it was called Point Raise. So that is the big peninsula that prevents Highway 1 from running close to the coast north of San Francisco. I I have a really cool picture of it because we flew over it as we were making our approach when I was coming back from Asia. So that is the story there. So it should be fun. It's definitely erotic-y. I would say what was catching my eye yarn-wise at the show was like, I think there is like a blue dye that is available. Would it be like, I think, who's I taught? I don't remember who I was talking with, but basically what it boiled down to was that there's this blue that looks like it does not belong in this world. It's so glowy and majestic. Like, really, I wish that I could dye it for myself, probably. Like, it's a strongly cyan. Would it be? It's probably actually very close to this, but this particular base does not make it glow in the same ridiculous way. But there were a couple of skates like that where they had like hit that so perhaps it's not surprising that I got a colorway that has some of that in that already, but indeed. So as you do. So erotic, but I resisted making very many yarn purchases because I do have quite a bit. Things have been going sort of slowly, so alright. Please excuse me for a moment while I locate my smaller items. Okay, we've got the smaller items now. But when I was in the car discussing what it is that I wanted, it was the case where I'd regretted not getting a shawl cuff. So I'm using my pin. This is actually a gift from a friend as part of a swap, and would it be? But it would be the case where sometimes just being able to cuff a shawl is lovely, and so I ended up getting the cuff and the earrings from Birdie Parker. So would it be? So it'd be the case where they are based out of Northridge, California, so they're probably going to be like a perennial presence at Stitches. And I opted for the matchy ones. There was also there were also sets where it had a stockinette on one side and then reverse stockinette on the other. But that was too much for me. So would it be? So it will be the case where, and then I did end up getting the silver. So this is going to be great for, what would it be? This is going to be great for getting shawls on, getting a little cuff on. I could wear my matching earrings if I felt like it, and would it be? And there's definitely a couple of shawls I own where it'll be like a little bit easier. It'll be a little bit easier if I can just cuff it instead. So, but this may be the case where I can't. Would it be? There was that brief moment where I was trying to get the earrings in at the show, and then I'm like, I either need a mirror or something in order to get them in. And I feel like that is going to be the case right now, because I did put some earrings in this morning just to be like sure. I'm like, okay, my ear piercings have not closed. Probably would have been a good thing to check before purchasing earrings, but whatever. Okay. Can I get through? Okay. Sorry. We made it to what would be, the computer was not stimulated enough to keep showing me the live preview of the podcast. Okay. So I'll have to get a mirror to put them in. which would normally be how I would go about doing stuff, so that's fine. But yeah, no, so, yeah, so it was the case where I managed to go to a fiber festival and I spent, less. the usual amount of money that I end up throwing at these sort of things. And mostly tools and pretty things, and then, and then a little bit of yarn. Not a crazy amount of yarn, but maybe one of the challenges that I have right now is that I got behind on my Ravelry entries, and I didn't upload stuff that I've gotten since SSK. So there's that. Will I fix my database? Who knows? But yeah, no, overall it was a good time. But it was definitely not the case where without classes, like, what if I saw everything I needed to see. I bought not too much stuff. I did not need like a second day of hanging out in the market necessarily. Whatever. Like, I would, but it would totally be the case where I think next year I will plan to sign up for a class. It was the case where I was sort of like, I only ended up formalizing the plans to go the day before. So yeah, it was like Friday morning was like, hey, this is happening tomorrow. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what my plans are. So, because I had been thinking about it for a while, because I think I mentioned it on last week's podcast, but then made it more formal then. So, yeah, it definitely would be the case, or would it be? It was also very nice to be able to carpool. Yeah, it was very nice to be able to carpool. So definitely, we'll be planning on going back. And if I do end up taking a class, it might be the case where it end up making it more of a weekend event, because at that point it's sort of far enough away where that makes sense. We'll see how things come together. But yeah, it didn't feel like as bad as Stitches Texas was, but it's definitely not as good as it had been. So I am still working on my handspun sock, but we're definitely getting much closer to the heel turn now. So only really like maybe like a couple more pattern repeats before I make it to that point. So fun knitting my very crazy cable yarn. Would it be definitely fraternal socks, but they still look like they're fraternal twins. They're not cousins. So this is Into the World and Tinkerbell's Unmentionables, and then the pattern that I'm knitting is the Simple Skip Sock by Adrienne Coe. And honestly, I don't really look too much at the pattern at this point. Mostly it's just for the little texture in it, which I also modified so that I'm doing it every third row instead of every two. Because the yarn is pretty tightly spun because the yarn is pretty tightly spun, so it would be a lot of fun to work that pattern, work that pattern more densely. And I did finish knitting the Swatch of Doom. So I will need to quantify this, and then I'm gonna block it, and then I'm gonna measure it again, and then I'm gonna have to rip it all out. So this is my almost sweater panel size swatch that I've been working on since January. For the Poet, which is a Sari Nordland pattern. This is the first time that I am knitting any of her designs. I got to try on a sample at SSK, and then that was one of my market quests, was to find a light colored yarn that I could knit this sweater in. So it will, or would it be, it's definitely probably much lighter than I would normally choose for myself. I definitely don't have a sweater like this. And so I knit this end of it with a US 3 and this end with a US 2.5. So a 3.25 and a 3mm needle respectively. And I think we got the right fabric on this end. So it looks a little bit better integrated, but this one, with maybe all of the handling, did look not too bad too. It's like, figure out. If it turns out that it blooms a bit in the wash, that is probably fine to knit with the 3mm. If it turns out that it doesn't bloom much in the wash, then I'm probably going to go with the 2.5. So, but I'll do like a good gauge double check on it. It is the case, I think, when we were discussing, because everyone that I've talked to about this swatch is a little like, what in the world are you doing? But the thought, or would it be, it may be the case where the seed stitch just looks a little bit more tidy in the 3mm, so it might be the case where that's what ends up happening. So a lovely texture and lace pattern. Would be definitely the case where there's just like one or two spots in the pattern where I have to be extra careful because it's not a keep on keeping on in the same way. But I did execute it correctly. I did execute it correctly on this last repeat, so there's that. Fabric feels really lovely. This is gonna be a great sweater. It's a little rustic with its flyaway linen, but the yarn itself is soft and smooth, if that makes any sense. So it doesn't, like, most of this does not feel rustic, if that makes sense. So should be good. Yeah, and you can see just from like me holding it that it is like a little bit smaller. So I'll have to figure out if that means I need to make any other changes to this. What would it be? And I think at this point I'm just leaning to knitting the raglan as it is. Probably selecting a size that gives me a bit of positive ease while keeping in mind that keeping in mind that I do have 3 skeins of this. For some reason, it's not taking a whole lot of knitting. Oh, there, whatever. So yeah. And since it is a sunny, beautiful day, hopefully I can get this measured and then get it drying so that I can finish it off. What I'm actually looking for right now is my little swatch ruler. I probably need to buy a new one of these because okay, so we're looking at 6 stitches on the bottom, and it's pretty much 6 stitches on the top too. Yeah, it's definitely not 6.5. This one could be reading 5. That would be sort of spooky. Hey, there was something where it ended up changing a little bit with handling. That's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely 6 stitches to the inch on the bottom. So it may not be a big difference. It may not be a big difference between them. Just like, yeah, because this is, or did I like relax while I was knitting this? Who knows? But it's looking like both sides are reading pretty similar, so we might just get with it and call it close enough. So should be fun. So this is Camellia Fiber Company. Their CFC organic linen. So this is 70% organic wool, 30% linen, 437 yards per 100 grams in the wheat color. So it's not a bright white. It could be undyed, or if it is dyed, it's just very, very, very lightly. So should be good. So it'll be interesting to see how the yarn reacts, because I haven't worked with like a wool linen blend like this before. We'll go from there. So the other thing that I'm working on, so this is a part of like, what would it be, like a traveling scarf project that we're doing for my San Francisco group. And so what would it be? So it starts with a crochet square, and then we have a pig for the bar we knit at, and then it was the case where I was thinking of, what would it be? We have an unusual construction, lace, and then I decided that my contribution would be handspun brioche, so I selected a chart that made sense in the context with how many stitches I had on the needles from knitting fresh brioche. I think it was the circular one, and then I ended up just doing it. So this is some coarse spun chain ply from my first SSK. I have some very early, this bright looking one is lightly dyed teal, and then I had some of the meat sheep yarn from one of Abby Frankenmouth's classes. So it'd be the case where I think I'm just gonna take a couple of my sample leftovers and incorporate them into fun little 2-color brioche squares for the project. So this one will probably go to the next person on Monday if I can manage to, what would it be? If I can manage to make it tomorrow. Oops. Rejigger again. Yeah. So, should be fun. And let's see if we can't. So, it's actually pretty similar to the pattern that I ended up making on, very similar to the pattern I ended up making on the brioche shawl I recently finished. If I had been continuing, or it was the case where I ended up offsetting the patterns, was because that's the fun thing about some of those brioche charts is the look of the thing can be very different depending on how you build your blocks. It would have been a very tilty square if I had not done an offset on it, and it was the case where I was trying to just use the teal alone, or like the bright teal that's in the background alone, and there was not enough. And then it was the case where I was also or would it be I ran out of the bright teal a little bit early, so I just closed it off, so I just have regular stitches on the top. It's pretty subtle. So should be fun. And then when I get mine back again, I'll show you the square I knit for that. So I did cast on for that project. I took the meat sheep yarn, which was this really gorgeous jewel tone that feels terrible. But super duper gorgeous colors. And so I just knit a brioche square out of that until I ran out, and then hid my end and threw it on a cable, and we'll see what comes back to me. But I figure we're probably gonna have a couple of these floating around. It was the case where the person who started, what would it be? Who actually the person I ended up carpooling with was like, well, you should start your own if you're going to be adding squares. But what would it be? Because it's always an interesting challenge because like, what would it be? It's fun to know sort of how each square is epitomizing the knitting personality of the person who's added to it. As you do. So that's why I was thinking very hard about what it was that was peak Molly. So we'll go from there. Someone is booting a boot. So that's the story there. What would it be? I did sit down and do a bit of a burn on my knitting spreadsheet issue, and my count is off like so early. The count on the spreadsheet is off very early on, so then maybe that explains some of the chaos that I'm experiencing. So I'll just I probably need to work on it a little bit more than I have. But yeah, things have been just a little bit different around here with guests, and now we're back into a normal mode of both parents are in the same country and no one's staying in this room, and should be good. So, what would it be? I'm trying to think. So, I do not anticipate any changes to the recording schedule, at least in the near future. Lovely to be in March with all of the sunshine. Maybe less lovely because my night meetings are going to be at a bad time now. Let's see. No. Do we have spring on that? See, I can't even remember. So I probably showed the bobbin, but I did end up finishing the 3-ply sample from my hip strings fiber sampler class that I'm still working on since July. So we have, what would it be? So this is like 1.5 ounces. Ooh, where'd it go? This is about 1.5 ounces. And then I have a little mini of the leftovers of the Targi bamboo silk that I ended up chain plying. So it's a very, what would it be? It's a very small mini for sure. But yeah, no, the yarn turned out pretty cool. I haven't washed it yet. I'll probably give it a bath when I do my swatch blocking. But yeah, no, it's really cool. So having 1-ply tweed, and then 1-ply that's very subtly dyed with a little bit of purple and orange and the gray base, and then the merino, or actually I think this was the BFL silk. It's like a BFL Tessa. So then that's adding like a little bit of white where we have like a lot of silk in it. This is a yarn Judith McKenzie would be proud of, with its what would it be? It's shade and tint with like just a little bit of tone. So, do I have specific plans for this one? No. And it did end up turning out like fairly thick for me. It's not this fine. This is definitely running somewhere between fingering to sport. This one is solidly fingering. Not that I'm 100% sure. Since, but like this is not super fine yarn. So, not to worry there. So, that was a fun adventure, but I have not yet started my final spin. So, that is still to come. I think part of it was that I was very focused on finishing my square before finishing my square the Friday night. So that was what I spent my time and attention on. So should be fun. And also there is a little bit of white in this one, but which is probably, I think, from the bamboo in it. So since bamboo is rayon, it doesn't take dye in the same way you would need to use a different type of dye to get it colored, so it should be fun. But yeah, no, I'm really pleased. So should be good. Add it to my pile of yarn from that. So so it'd be the case where I have a clear game plan for what's happening next, at least in the short term. So that's solid. Definitely in the mood for some sweater knitting. And then what I'm feeling like right now is that when I finish the socks, I will probably get like start focusing on the cobweb shawl again. So that's where I'm feeling right now, is that I had a pretty good interlude of a bit easier knitting, and now I am feeling the lace calling again. So should be good. So with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. So take care, guys. Bye bye.